The fourth reason why you should probably pay attention to RFK Jr. He refuses to personally insult his opponents. He tends to avoid divisive language, and he really does embody unity.
Mm-hmm. Yes, which is so important for a leader. We've all heard, I've said this before, like we've all heard the politicians who claim to want to reach across party lines, like verbatim, that's what they say. I'm going to reach across party lines and we're going to get things done together. This is impossible if you have just spent the last 2+ years or more, maybe your entire career, bashing and bad-mouthing the opposite party or whatever. And so RFK really leads by example in the focus on unification by transcending petty personal attacks and smear campaigns. And watch any of his interviews, any of his videos on his social media, people bait him all of the time. Yeah. They bait him. What do you think about this? What do you really think about this? And they'll feed him up on a platter, just tee him up perfectly to bash whoever it is, whether it's Trump or Biden or someone else, or the left in general or the right in general. And he will not do it. Now, he'll speak to what he sees objectively happening that he doesn't necessarily agree with, but it's not a smear campaign. He'll say, I'm noticing this, I'm noticing that, but it's not a personal attack smear campaign that we are all too familiar with. And so it's just like we need someone at the top saying, I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in something else, something different, something greater. And so, since 2020, it seems like every week there's another global issue or crisis pushing people to become an overnight expert, binding themselves to the side that they have chosen and othering people who may think differently. And none of us need any help communicating differences of opinion. We need to see a leader who can be an example of unity, focusing on what we have in common. Like I mentioned before, we all want the freedom to live long, happy, healthy lives surrounded by people we love. We all want to live without the threat of nuclear war looming above our heads. We all want our children to grow up with the same or even more opportunity than we had. What if we had a leader that focuses on what makes us similar more than what makes us all different? Totally. And that's what I'm interested in.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I remember in 2008, I think it was, I was 18. This was the first election that I could vote in, and it was Obama-McCain. And we grew up conservative Christian, and so it was always pretty much Republican or nothing. And so I did pay attention, having felt this relatively new power to be able to vote, which was a cool thing. And I was aligning with Obama because he was checking off all the cool, data points that were interesting to me.
He had a nice jumper.
Great little lefty jump shot. He could articulate anything. But I also had, at least as an 18-year-old, as much as you can have, a level of interest in McCain. And he was a veteran. He seemed to be actually quite neutral in some of his perspectives, a lot more socially liberal, which in that era was interesting because it was like gay marriage was a topic of relevance, which was one of the big things that I was very much against in the Christian domain. Was like, wait, why can't two loving, contributing people of the same sex be married? That's completely crazy to me.
You didn't agree with Christians.
I did not agree with Christians in that stance. And so McCain, who had been more liberal as it pertains to some of those social ideas, was interesting to me. And the thing that made me think way less of him was that his campaign quickly turned into a smear of Obama. And he took the usual political tricks of just all those ads that are just this person will be the worst thing that ever happens.
You don't want this person.
And honestly, that was kind of the last straw for me to not have necessarily any interest in voting Republican. And it's been one of the things that's so impressive about RFK Jr. thus far, because you could dunk on Biden or Trump.
He literally gets paid to, tear ideas down.
Right.
Right? Like, that's his job. He's got all the mental faculties to do it.
This could be the layup line for him. This could be the scoreboard is 0 to 100 if he wanted to.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't need to go into it, but
yeah, we all get it. Yeah.
We've got an orange Easter egg character and a poor elderly gentleman who should be sipping a Mai Tai on the beach in his last months of life. Yeah. I don't know. But it's been wildly impressive that he refuses to sink to the depths that both of those two just exist in 24/7.
In their defense, literally every other politician ever before in history of our lives, of our generation, I've never not heard smear campaigns and personal attacks and all of these things. And so really to hear RFK say what he's going to say in these clips that we're going to play, it's like, whoa.
All right, so let's hear from RFK as to why he won't attack the left or right.
Let me ask you a question from Jordan Peterson that he asked when I told him that I'm speaking with you. When does the left go too far? I suppose he's referring to cultural issues, identity politics.
Well, Jordan trying to get me to badmouth the left the whole time I was in. I really enjoyed my talk with him. But he seemed to have that agenda where he wanted me to, say bad things about the left. That's not what my campaign is about. I want to do the opposite. Oh, I'm not going to badmouth the left. I was on a show this week with David Remnick from The New Yorker, and he tried to get me to badmouth Donald Trump and Alex Jones and a lot of other people, and baiting me to do it. And of course, there's a lot of bad things I could say about all those people, but I'm trying to find values that hold us together and we can share in common, rather than to focus constantly on these disputes and these issues that drive us apart. So me sitting here bad-mouthing the left or bad-mouthing the right is not going to advance the ball. I really want to figure out ways that, what do these groups hold in common that we can all, have a shared vision of what we want this country to look like.
Well, that's music to my ears.
Sometimes I want to be like, just dunk on them though. Like, bro, just dunk on them. And it's funny because people of significant historical influence take the same approach. Mm-hmm. Martin Luther King Jr., Gandhi. I mean, some of these characters, their traits are an unwillingness to sink to the level of petty shit talking.
Yeah. And it really points to a higher level of consciousness when you can get past like the jab, jab, poke, poke, and realize that doesn't do anything. Again, coming back to why I previously did not pay attention to politics, because it's like, this is just a screaming match where you're insulting people. Like, tell me where you actually care about the American people that you're supposed to serve. Or do you just care about looking like you won the debate against your opponent who you're insulting for 2 hours? Like, I'm not interested in that.
Yeah.
And so this really, really does point to a higher level of consciousness where he's talking about weaving a story, a shared vision that we can all have. And, it sounds like Joseph Campbell is on his advisory board, like this mogul of storytelling and myth, and how important it is for a people to have a shared story, a shared myth. And he's doing that without saying it, but that's what he's trying to create amongst the American people. Is like, what do we actually stand for? Do we stand for hate and division? Like, is that the best we can do? I don't think so. Right. I think that we can do much better. And it really helps when you have a leader who's actually embodying that from the top down.
Thank you so much for listening.
If you enjoyed that, check out right over here for some more fun clips.
Oh, and you're going to want to subscribe.
Bye.